I'm really sorry. It's wrong. Salt and vinegar flavoured crisps, wibbly wobbly woo-wah. It's these little bastards you've got to look out for. It's really, really heavy. It's wibbly wobbly woo. That's perfect. Less wibbly wobbly woo. Fancy lights. It's wrong. It's wrong. It needs to be the other way around. I'm sorry, but no. Oh, that's good, isn't it? Oh. It's just rude. Sorry, it just sounds ridiculous. I'm not asking you to put sweets in with your pedals. My wallet is yours. Rant over. So will this be my new go-to MIDI controller? Well, the answer to that what do you think you touch the most in a working day? Is it your mouse, your keyboard, your controller, or one of these? Now, these have become a bit of an enigma for people who are coming into orchestral programming because they are totally essential. Without them, you get a fraction of the benefits of the style of sampling that has become the norm, i.e. crossfading between different recordings, different timbres. And particularly with what I'm going to use to demonstrate today, this brass library we've just made, there's very much a change in character between the kind of soft tone and if we go up here where there's a flugelhorn. So a real change in timbre there. Yes, you could just use your modulation wheel, but for reasons that are given in a video I've done before, which is linked in the video description down below, I use a combination, expression and timbral control. It's to give me the maximum dynamic range of any given instrument, but also a means to balance, which is not the same as mix, balance the instrument in real time against the rest of the other instruments in the arrangement. This has a great feel, and the way that I play and the way that I interact with the instruments is totally reliant on this feeling great. It's no different for these controllers. Yet, there isn't a big company that makes them, certainly not something that isn't simply a hack of something that's designed for another purpose. I'm just putting this out there, but I would spend $500, $1,000 on something that I am touching all day, every day, and my days are long days, as are all of ours. So it seems to me where we're at the moment, where MIDI controllers that are specifically designed for the type of work that we do, orchestral programming, seems to be the domain of very small startups. So I'm going to take you through 3 relatively new entries to the marketplace by different companies from different parts of the world, starting, and whilst this guy has requested that I don't promote his controllers too much, I would consider it to be the benchmark as far as I've used thus far. And I've been doing orchestral programming for probably about 20 years. And that is the Nuance, made by a gentleman called Pierre. I suspect that a little bit like guitar pedals, a lot of these are 1-2 person operations. So I'm just going to take you through why I love this one. It's USB-C. And whilst you may get nervous that there seems to be no connector at the back, it's very easy to unscrew the Nuance and change the cable, and indeed change it to a different format of USB should you want. It requires no software, no proprietary power unit. It powers off USB. And this is what's really, really important for me. Sorry, Pierre, it's a bit dusty, isn't it? What's really important for me is peripherals don't require peripherals. That should be the hard and fast law. It should be punishable at The Hague when manufacturers create peripherals, add-ons, that require add-ons to use. The biggest culprit of this is the Apogee interface, designed to be portable, but has a proprietary cable that you simply wouldn't find in any local hi-fi newsagent, short of being in some kind of civilized conurbation and being able to get same-day Amazon. The other thing that many of the kind of bigger manufacturers do is require that you have some form of software that interfaces with the controller and kind of sits between the USB MIDI signal that you're sending and your DAW. This, for me, is a peripheral and is a non-starter. We don't know the business decisions that these small startups are going to make. We don't know whether SSL is going to continue supporting a piece of hardware. I don't want to spend money, create muscle memory and a way of working with an interface as important as this, with the fear that a badly serviced loan in some distant clime is going to render it inoperational. So for me, Pierre ticks the non-proprietary cable, self-powered, no software required, and it's really, really intuitive. You have 3 knobs and a button. And we've got this one set to 11, this one set to 1. Most of these ship with controller 1 on the first fader. This typically controls your timbre, and control 11 on fader 2. This controls your expression. I never inquire as to what the third fader does because I never use one. Now, I can't recall if I needed to reprogram this, but 1 and 11, I'm really sorry, it's wrong. It's the wrong order. It would be fine if you were using it with your right hand, but to my knowledge, most of us play, if we're going to favour one hand to play the piano with, it would be our right hand. Conversely, timbre and that all-specific brass, I refer to it almost like a passaggio point in the voice where you switch from chest to head voice. There is a point at which the brass becomes brassy. Those timbre points, you require the most minute of adjustments to get the emotion just right. Now if I can remember what I just played. Same notes is as different as salt and vinegar flavoured crisps and a packet of Maltesers. All this fader is doing is affecting volume. It's a much blunter tool. Therefore, the finger that is more articulate, the one that has the dedicated tendon, should be the one that you use to create those fine articulations. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know tons and tons of professional composers. It's this way round. That it ships the other way round is simply an engineer's choice. It's because it's going in numerical order. That doesn't mean anything to us. We need timbre there. I'm sorry, but if I was using this finger, it would feel like, playing a right-handed piano part with my left hand. It's beautifully made. It's got a bit of wood, which is lovely. Again, something you're touching all the time. The only criticism I would have of this box is its throw. These faders aren't very long. And again, if we're looking at this area with the brass, oh, just in case you're wondering, there is a lag programmed into this software that provides you with the most naturalistic controller movements. Otherwise, it becomes very brittle and fake sounding. But again, we're using our ears and we're using our motor skills to respond to what we're hearing. We're talking about 15 millimeters, I guess, on this, where you really, really want precise control. And that's just for this specific sound. I mean, if you're using things like cimbasso samples and stuff, the passaggio point, as I incorrectly call it, is that much more severe and therefore needs controlling. So I myself would prefer a throw that is just a bit longer. But this is what I use as my travel companion after using it for a couple of years as my main controller device. It's been replaced by the Ghost Note. Ticks a whole bunch of boxes for me. It's got its own USB-C port at the back, so you forget your cable or the cable breaks, just pop down to pink dot at the end of the road. Lovely, lovely long throw with a very smooth feeling there. It's also got 1, 2, 3. It's got 3 different banks. So what you can do is program in your different controller values, as in 11, 1, 20, and then on this you can go 21, 22, 23, etc., to suit, say, for example, if you're using one of your favorite synths and you want the common MIDI controller assignments for that. However, it doesn't require proprietary software to run in the background whilst you're using it, because it is a class compliant device. But in order to zap the firmware so it knows what controllers you want there, you have to go to their website. I will come back and need to reprogram this for whatever reason once a year, once every 2 years. I'll not remember how to do it. I'll look at it and go, oh yeah, I need to zap it with a web app. And then when I go to your site, it's not obvious. If I go there, what's this thing called? Well, I know it's probably not the pedal stand and the signal generator, but I imagine your business is going to grow and this may not be your prime concern. So just whack conductor on the front plate so I know what I'm looking for, also know what I can Google for, and just go straight there. So MIDI 2 editor. Just a little line on the website, use this to reprogram your conductor. I believe this is number 2. Again, there's no indication of that on this. Quite easy for me to forget, particularly as you expand, and maybe there'll be a new Ghost Note conductor 3. So we've got 1, 11. We don't want it that way around. We want it 11, 1, factory reset. No, not factory reset, upload. Again, these things are not intuitive. It should say zap unit, and put factory reset on the left-hand side, not on the right-hand side. I am nitpicking, but it's a peripheral, and it's important for something that has a single use to get that use absolutely right. Upload. Okay, so now let's look at that. Yeah, there we are. Great. It feels great. I would love the faders to be just a bit close together. They're a bit spread. So I'd like to be able to do this comfortably, to be able to create total independence between the two controllers. There's very little resistance on the faders, which means you'll see there's a bit of a kind of shudder there. And that's just my natural human, if I'm trying to do something linear, it's difficult to do if there's no resistance. You're having to gauge the speed because it requires very little pressure. So again, all nitpicking. I love this device. I love that when I gave it its first review, the Mark 1, I guess, you listened. So the Mark 2, which you kindly sent me, had this 3-bank switch on, which I think is very elegant, works very well. You'd also taken the feet off and put a flat bit of frictiony plastic, which is great. I have some blue tack there just to make it really, really stick. But because there's no little legs, it's not going wibbly wobbly woo-wah. You made the cable USB-C, and we've all been there when there's a weird USB, like PlayStation size, whatever that was, mini or micro. And it's the one that you don't have in your bag. It's the one that Pink Dot doesn't have down the road, and suddenly you're finding yourself Ubering somewhere, which obviously you can't do on a plane either. So USB-C, you're likely to have in your handbag. So that's Ghost Note Audio. It's still very much my daily go-to controller. I've experienced literally zero problems with it whatsoever. And something that I think is also very important when testing this is that when you're recording, I'm trying to keep these as smoothly as humanly possible. Again, because there's no friction, it's quite difficult. What you want to see when you do that modulation is nice, smooth lines. No, it's these little bastards you've got to look out for. You'll get little things like that when you're dealing with controllers that are prone to dust. You don't have to physically program these in simultaneously. I just like, when I'm making music, for it to feel performed. This is something you could program in with a pen. I still believe the best way to express yourself, much more natural than drawing something on a screen, is with one of these, however. Okay, so next up, we're getting something from Russia, an interlude, not as a composer, as a fellow entrepreneur. Your brand and your brand name is everything. And that you do not have your brand. It's a piece of hardware that sits on someone's desk. It's not inside a computer. It's not a piece of software that just pops up from time to time. It's there and it's permanent. To not put your branding on the device, I think, is just crazy. Now, I've been speaking to the guys at, I'll put it up on the screen. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name because I'm 53 and grumpy. I've been speaking to the guys there, and they say on the latest firmware update, or software update as they called it, it appears on the screen, which is a really weird use of real estate for feedback. What's more, I've been to your site, guys, and I cannot find a firmware update there. And excuse me if I'm being blind, or indeed that maybe it's because the English site is second language, but can I update the firmware? If so, I'd love to do that so that if I use it for future videos, people can see the name of the device I'm using. This is the other thing, is there's an absolute explosion of YouTubers making content like mine on the internet at the moment. To pass up the chance of having your brand kind of watermarked into these tutorials, it is just, I think it's a missed chance. There's something else about this that I found annoying, but that gripe is shared with the next device. So I'll come back to that later so you don't feel I'm piling on. The feel of this is fantastic. It's really, really heavy. It feels really expensive. And there's this just beautiful, you can see that it's a smoother thing. It's just a beautiful amount of friction. It's like this has been tested out. Let's just do what I did on the other one, just to show you a comparison. You'll see, sorry, this is something I programmed in, as you recall. So you'll see that that isn't as continuous. There are a few bumps in there, and maybe it doesn't make a huge difference. It just looks like what I intended. That's what I meant. What's also great about this unit is no proprietary software and a fairly intuitive way of programming. So we've got 4 different faders there, and we've got 1 encoder. So that. I've set to, sorry, I was going to get to this in a minute. Feet. People don't use controllers like that. They use them like that, which means wibbly wobbly woo. Fortunately, I've got just the solution. Turns out these things, books, aren't just to put in your house to make you look intelligent, or indeed to put your iPhone charger on top of next to your bed. They're also great because the people who make these things, they put different amounts of stuff in them. And that means that they basically come in different heights. And that's perfect. And when I'm making these videos, a lot of people will actually think I've read this book. Oh, that's better. Less wibbly wobbly woo. So I believe this button advances different presets. So again, as I mentioned before, with the ghost note, where is it? Let's put that back there. With the ghost note, that this has got 3 banks. This has got a whole ton. I think it's got 8. No, 12. No, it's got 10 different presets. So for your different synths. To program these things, and I can't remember if this came with 111 or 11.1. What we do is you hold this down, that goes to that color, and then you simply, if you want to edit the number here, so we want this to be 11, and we want this to be 1. Saved. It really is just a very, very beautiful, really love the feel of these faders. Absolutely lovely. It's interesting, actually, the first fader, not quite the same amount of resistance as the second. I might just be imagining it. No, I'm definitely not. So there's a bit of machining inconsistency there. This feels more like this. This has a weight to it. This is about between the two. Same. But it has a sense of quality. And, you know, we struggle with our confidence. And a lot of our gear purchases are affirmationary, if that's a word. And this definitely affirms your position. So my nitpicks would be, I'd take the feet off. I can see actually they're screwed on. So is that going to make the... No, that's not going to make the integrity of the case. I don't think so. I could theoretically take those off, customize it. There's a bit of inconsistency with the feel of these faders. I imagine this is probably a very early batch. I imagine that'll improve. Got to put your branding, put the model number. There's a reason why everything I own, every piece of hardware has its model number on. The only company who doesn't, and it'll charge you $500 extra for them not to have their brand on it, is Leica. And they're in a different league. So it looks clean and it looks lovely, but I'm sure you can get someone in Russia to do a beautiful logo for you. And just get yourselves out there. All of these YouTube influencers. Lovely bit of kit, and thank you so much for me not needing a website or software to use it. Next up is the Lujin. I don't know what this is called because the model name is not on it. I sound like a fucking school teacher. What I like as an old codger is it's actually got a MIDI, proper MIDI thing at the back there, which is really groovy. Now, we've got 3 encoders, fancy lights. I believe these are all programmable, as are the encoders. Right, look, that's expression. It's wrong. It's wrong. It needs to be the other way around. And the problem is, if you ship it that way around, everyone is going to learn the wrong way round. And it'll just make people feel awkward when they're working. This is the most articulate finger in your left hand, so give that to the most important fader. Oh, jeepers. Also, where writing music for media is concerned, we work quiet most of the time. We'll have a few action sequences, a few bits of emotion. There is a tiny proportion of composers who are writing kind of wall-to-wall Marvel type mega dashing around stuff. So this shape here is something that you'll see time and time again. And what that is we start writing like this, lots of quiet, lots of beautiful chocolatey brass. And then you'll add some more brass and more strings, this, that, and that. And what you'll be doing is fighting for it to be heard. So this will creep up, but I don't want it to creep up and sound like this. It's just, again, Maltesers, salt and vinegar crisps. So for me, I don't know, that way round, it's really, really awkward. And people who say I only use modulation, okay. It's not what the big girls and boys do, because you need to be able to balance and control both timbre and volume, and you need that to be independent. And I know someone will say it. Why don't you use foot pedals? It's like, because I use the sustain pedal. Sorry, I'm really getting grumpy here. I've answered this question so many times. I don't use foot pedals because I need two controllers. And I use one foot to sustain with, and I use my other foot to keep time with. Seriously, if I can't tap my foot, I'm all over the place. So I just have no more limbs spare. So yes, it makes for two-handed composition very difficult, and the way around that is what I will do is I will simply go back and then program it in. So I'll find a nominal volume. Why is that down there? Interesting. I'll find a nominal volume. Is that doing something interesting? I'll find a nominal volume that is kind of sits it where I want it in the mix for the take, for the part, for the section, and then I'll then go and do all of the nice emotional stuff. Now, when I first started using it, I thought that there was something erroneous going on with the lights. You'll notice that when I go like that, it jumps up because that's where I left it. But when I go like that, it goes down. This is, and please, guys at Lujin, correct me if I'm wrong, this is because when you are recording, it goes into MIDI out mode. When you're playing back, it goes to MIDI in mode. But in order for it to basically demonstrate, I mean, that's good, isn't it? That's really good. So basically you can set your DAW up so it spits out the controller data back to the device so that you can see where the automation position is. It's not just fancy lights, so that when it comes into punching in, you can meet the fader with where your programming was. Oh, tasty. Apologies, Lujin. I've just kind of clocked that now, that I haven't set that up in my DAW. I guess I'll get my assistant to do it because I'm not very clever. To reprogram, there's a tasty little button on the back, and let's put that 1. Let's put that 11. Now, the reason I was struggling a little bit with reprogramming is there's next to no friction on these at all. And if you're wanting some feedback, Lujin, if there's any way of increasing the friction, it's why I hate using iPad controllers, is you kind of want feedback, and you simply can't do stuff as smoothly. It certainly requires a lot more concentration if there isn't friction there. I believe if you double tap, it's now reprogramming. Yes, it's now reprogramming. 1, 2, 3 there. Beautiful device, lovely bit of wood. If I was nitpicking, I'm going to do 2 nitpicks. It would be great if you didn't have the feet, so that we didn't have to use the book. Bit of friction. And then this is my nitpick for both these manufacturers. And I can't remember Ghost Notes if you did or didn't do this. Please write a user manual for these. It's just rude. I'm sorry to say, it's just rude because it just makes me feel stupid that I can't figure it out. And Lujin, yes, I know that I found the answers to these questions because you got an FAQ, but an FAQ is not the same as a user manual. And I know that we're trying to protect the rainforests and all of that kind of stuff, but every time I make a Google inquiry and come and find you, I'm burning a hole in an ice sheet near Iceland in a server farm anyway. Surely a single piece of paper with a printout in the box would be great. And that just goes with that whole, I believe they call them touch points in business. It's the points at which we interact with you. Okay, this feels great, but the box came, it was fairly anonymous. It didn't come with a user manual. And whilst it may cost you a bit of money to pay a graphic designer, or it may cost you a bit of time to spend a bit of time getting it looking nice, even if people don't read it, they look at it, they go, oh, I like these guys. Take a leaf out of people who make these one-person operations. Take a leaf out of the Eurorack mob. When you open it up, you'll get stickers, you'll get some promotional material for some other companies. You'll get, I don't know, one of them you get little kind of Indian like brass sculptures. Some of them you'll get a refresher suite in. It just makes you feel loved. And those minute expressions of love will connect your audience to you, particularly in this day and age of Amazon and AI and humanless interaction. The idea that it's not somewhere. No offense to this country, but it's not somewhere in China that's boxed something on your behalf. That you've gone out to Costco and you've bought a box of refreshers and someone has boxed it and put one in, and it comes with love. Sorry, it just sounds ridiculous. I'm not asking you to put sweets in with your pedals, but please write a manual, even if you must insist on sticking it up as a PDF on a server that's whirring 24 hours a day in the Arctic Circle. Rant over. So, from a feature point of view, I would say this is the strongest contender. Whilst I haven't programmed the MIDI back functionality, the ability to get feedback from the device of where your fader should be when it takes over a take or punches in, that's a bit of a game changer for me. Yes, I prefer more friction. I've got a screwdriver, I can take the legs off. So will this be my new go-to MIDI controller? Well, the answer to that is, I'm afraid, no, because there's a deal breaker. And I don't know if this is an error in this particular build or it's the first batch, but I don't think they stuck a battery in here, which means (1:11). The idea that I would need to remember to reprogram the order of the controllers is just a step too far. It's an absolute deal breaker for me. So I don't know if it's a batch issue. I don't know if there's plans for you to stick a battery in it. To consider it as a controller, you would have to make that change. So sorry, Lujin, if that's if I'm, I know that a lot of people work with controller 1, controller 11. Simply that's because that's the way most of these things ship. So this won't affect most people. But to make this thing programmable, and there's these double clicks and all of that kind of stuff, to do that every time you turn the thing on, I'm sorry, but no. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing something, if I haven't pressed, I'm sorry, but no. But there's no user manual. And I know that you've donated this to the channel. You know, if you do fix that, or if I've got it wrong, I will absolutely correct this review. But I'm long in the tooth. I've used these for many, many years, and I think I've done everything right. And this thing is not remembering my settings. And the reason why it makes me upset is because I don't have the mental faculty to, one, remember that I need to reprogram it every time I switch it on, but two, I probably won't remember and I probably won't notice. And that makes me feel like an idiot. Give us a user manual, make it remember what we want it to do. These are all fantastic. And hats off to these individuals who have the lack of risk aversion necessary to set up companies that are making these things so excellently. And by and large, these really are excellent. Believe you me, I've tried some of these things and they can be absolutely awful. I know that there's a slightly more expensive controller that a lot of Americans are using. It's got loads of faders on it. I don't like that because it makes me feel like I'm not doing my job properly because I only use 2. But if you guys want to send me one, I'll happily do a review of that, and maybe an updated review of the Lujin once they fix what I seem to be certainly a deal breaker for me. Anyway, as I said, if you make one for $1,000, if it works, if it's awesome, if it doesn't have feet, doesn't use software, proprietary cables, has a long reach, a little bit of friction behind it, if the faders are nice close together, and now, new demand, if it has a little light to show me where I should put the fader when I'm punching in, my wallet is yours. Thanks as ever for watching, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to say about this review. Please put your questions regarding why I don't use a volume or expression pedal in the comments down below. And I do notice that most of you who watch these videos aren't subscribed. We're a small startup, and that's like our currency. It's all that is required for us to keep on making these videos. But also, if you don't know who we are, we're called the Crow Hill Company, and we make this fantastic line of free virtual instruments called Volts, also linked in the video description down there. One of those for these wonderful people who have made these wonderful controllers, and many thanks for sending them to me. Sorry for being a nitpicker, sorry for being a little bit stroppy, but I just really care about this. And if you're going to put so much effort in, may as well get it right, eh? See you next time.